Good afternoon, welcome to More Tea Minister. My name is Ian. Today we are looking at a white tea, and I think I'm right in saying this is the first white tea we are looking at that comes from Taiwan. It's called Red Jade White, and the vendor is Curious Tea, who we've seen through many videos so far. This is an unusual kind of white tea because it's a kind of tea, a cultivar that was bred specially by the TRES, who we've seen many a time, for actually revitalizing the black tea industry in Taiwan. And yet it's very interesting to see it used in this way, which is obviously the very opposite to a black tea. It's this absolutely minimal processing and minimal, at least initial, oxidation. The particular cultivar is Red Jade Hong Yu, and it's TRES number 18. And it was created through a crossbreeding of a native or indigenous tea strain in Taiwan and an Assamica strain. And as I say, the intention behind it was to create something that would be more beneficial to the black tea industry, but here we are with white tea. We're going to take a closer look at the packaging and have a look at the tea itself, which is something of a surprise, to say the least, compared to some of the other white teas that we've looked at. I will simply say that the notes from Curious Tea, at least the ones on the packaging, point out that we're looking for a smooth taste, lightly floral and creamy character with sweet notes of spices and exotic fruits, and boiled down to one word, that is spicy. So let's move on to part 2 of our video. See you then. Hello and welcome to part 2 of our video. We're going to begin by looking at the packaging. Although I haven't always done this in the past, it occurs to me that it's always worth looking at the packaging for Curious Tea, because not only is there a lot of information on the packaging, but they use a lot of color coding and symbolism to point out the kind of tea as well as the nationality of the tea. So, for example, the most obvious case, I think, or at least the largest, would be something like this white leaf shape here, which has got white written in it. So you know at a glance that you're dealing with white tea. Down here, you've got the flag and other details to point out that you're dealing with Taiwan. However, the color coding and some of the symbols used elsewhere in the packaging also point out which specific country that we're dealing with. Along with that, we've got some brief information about the heritage of the tea, the flavor profile, the brewing parameters, and the date of the harvest. So back in February of this year. And then there's a one-word flavor profile. So that's the details from the packaging. We're now going to take a look up close at some of the tea, which is really radically different to any white tea that we've looked at so far. Now we're taking a close-up at the tea itself. Now you might well be thinking that I made a mistake here and I've actually opened up a packet of oolong, of a twisted leaf variety, because that really is what it looks like. It's so dark, it looks like a very heavily oxidized oolong, or possibly even some kind of black tea, but that is the nature of the strain of tea itself. The one thing that I will also say about it is that even from a distance of about 1.5 feet, maybe more, the smell of the tea is really quite profound. It's so fruity and so sweet and so intense, it's almost like a sort of fruit-flavored marshmallow. But there we go, just a quick look at the tea itself. Now on to part 3. Hello and welcome to part 3 of our video, where we are going to review this tea, Red Jade White, in the Western style and in a gongfu. So as always, we've got our pre-steeped tea Western style here in a teapot behind the kettle. The tea was brewed following Curious Tea's own parameters, which is effectively 1 gram of tea to 100 mils of water, 80 degrees centigrade for 2 to 3 minutes, and we gave it the full 3 minutes. And then we're going to move on to doing it Eastern style, gongfu style. So we've also got our cup. We've got a platter, the lid to the gaiwan, with some of the Red Jade White leaves. You've seen a close-up of them, but that's them again looking much more like a black tea, with this extraordinary smell, really sweet and really woody all at the same time, really fruity. Our Gaiwan, our transparent jug, our board strainer, and our wastewater jug off to one side. So let's see what the Western style brew is like. I didn't make too much of it. I've actually got a reasonable sized store of Red Jade White, but I always feel, unless I'm going to drink it all, it's a wee bit of waste. So there we are. The colour is quite a intense yellow. I think that, yeah, there you go. That's about spot on. It's much more sort of red fruits than any white tea I've had before. And it's much less to do with that burst of freshness that white tea always seems to give. And it's much more a sort of, almost a summer fruits drink. On the palate, it's almost confectionery. I would have been tempted maybe to bump that temperature up a bit. It's the flavor profile is just dropping off a little, and I feel there's such a depth of flavor. I don't think it's a problem with the tea itself. The fact that I'm willing to drink it all, there's a bit of woodiness there, almost a bit of spice, almost a bit of incense, and plenty of fruit. That's really, really quite... In fact, I am going to finish it. That's really, really, absolutely amazing. And the woodiness and the sweetness, funnily enough, both come through on the cup. So I'm very interested to know what it would be like gone through. So for that reason, is what we're doing today, and I bumped the temperature up to 85. 6 grams of tea, and because I want to get the absolute best, I am going to reheat. It's still warm, but I want to reheat this Gaiwan to get the absolute best out of it. And then we will proceed. I'll leave the water in the jug until we're ready to use it. So 6 grams of tea into our pre-warmed Gaiwan. So what does that smell like now? Oh, that marshmallow smell has come back. It really is quite extraordinary stuff. So let's give that somewhere between 15 to 20. Let's go with 18 seconds to start with. 100 mils. So that's our first steep at 18. That's quite a bit of colour. Now that's interesting. The wood is there, a bit of the sweetness. That's very savoury on that first steep. So, the colour, I would have said that bordering, it's a much darker yellow than it was Western style. A slightly more generic sweetness and wood, and a hint of something savoury. That might be the sort of incense quality. Oh, that's almost biscuity. It's always the case. How much more sweetness comes through on the cup. A bitter is very fruity, almost tart fruit. The flavour's lingering, so we haven't got a drop off. It's such an intense fruit flavour. It's a bit like chewing too many sweeties at once. I don't mean like a sort of generic sugar buzz, but the palate's almost kind of overwhelmed by it. Just the complexity, that is. So, there we are. It's about to rebrew. I don't want to push that too much. Let's just give that another 5 seconds. Let's go for 23 and see where that gets us. I'm going to pour the water into the gaiwan, but away from the tea. Okay, let's see what we've got now. Really sweet fruit smell that time. Much less of the savoury note. The colour, I would say back towards yellow. I'm trying to make sure you get it the way I can see it. About that's as good as you can get. It's a yellow about the same as the Western style. Almost syrupy. Really sweet. Yeah, much the same on the cup, but with some extra fruitiness. It's really rich on the palate. Really, I'm not saying it's almost sort of mouthfeel, but it's not sort of coating the cup, so I don't think it's particularly viscous. That's really good. It's much richer than any white tea. It doesn't have the lightness and that sort of in-your-face freshness. It's much more... I keep thinking it's an oolong. Some kind of very sweet oolong. I suppose partly it's the shape of the leaves doing that. So let's get this one, maybe the same duration, but we'll pour the water onto the leaves this time. And see if that helps us. I think the other reason I'm drinking it so greedily is because I'm not used to brewing it down at 85, at least for our reviews. And so it's quite a nice change not to have to be sipping it and blowing it, and I can just hose it back, which I know isn't doing much for the the innate dignity of the affair, but it's good tea, what can I say? Alright, let's see where that gets us. Oh, the colour's back to being a dark yellow or more intense yellow. Just really intense sweetness, syrupy sweetness again. Stewed fruit coming through that time. And just fruit and syrup. That's what it is on this. The smell from the cup, it's some kind of fruit and syrup. It's rich, it's very satisfying, and all of this from a white tea. The sweetness is just rolling around my palate. That's really, really wonderful. So let me turn the kettle off. I don't think you could take this past 85. There's a slight, not a bitterness, but there's something of a palate that's saying that's as hot as this would go. Maybe you could keep it at 80 but brew it for longer, but you'd still be trying to balance getting the flavour out, but not any tannins or any bitterness. Do I like this tea? Yes, I really like this tea. I'm hoping that that's come across fairly loud and clear. Taste-wise, it's quite extraordinary. Such intense sweetness and richness in a white tea. So from that point of view, it's fantastic stuff. Is it easy to get hold of? Yes, of course. Having reviewed this from Curious Tea, I'm going to say if you can get it from Curious Tea, then that only seems fair, but you can get it from lots of other vendors, lots and lots, so it's ubiquitous. And is it easy to brew? Well, the Western style, of course, is very easy. Eastern style, gone through for white tea is always a little bit of balancing work and paying attention to the tea, because it's very easy to overcook it or to go too far the other way and not get the most out of it. I'm thinking about 85 has done a good job, but of course, feel free to experiment. On that note, it's very definitely 3 out of 3. It tastes great. With a little bit of work, it's not difficult to brew, and you can get it just about anywhere. And on that note, it just remains for me to say happy steeping and God bless.